Emma Rodriguez sat quietly in the back corner of her new classroom, watching her classmates chat excitedly about their families during show-and-tell time. The 12-year-old had moved to Riverside Elementary just 3 weeks ago when her mother was stationed at the nearby naval base. Everything felt strange and unfamiliar in this small coastal town where everyone seemed to know each other since kindergarten. When Mrs. Patterson called her name, Emma's heart began racing. She slowly walked to the front of the classroom, clutching a framed photograph in her sweaty palms. The picture showed a woman in military uniform standing proudly with her SEAL team, weapons and tactical gear visible in the background. "This is my mom, Lieutenant Commander Maria Rodriguez," Emma began, her voice barely above a whisper. "She's a Navy SEAL and she's currently deployed overseas on a classified mission. She's been training for special operations since before I was born." The classroom erupted in snickers and whispered comments. Tommy Henderson, the class clown, let out a loud laugh. "Yeah, right. Girls can't be Navy SEALs. My dad says only tough guys can do that job." "You're totally making that up." Emma's cheeks burned bright red as more students joined in the laughter. "It's true," she insisted, her voice growing stronger. "My mom graduated from BUD/S training 5 years ago. She's one of the first women to make it through the program." Sarah Mitchell, one of the popular girls, rolled her eyes dramatically. "Come on, Emma, we're not stupid. Navy SEALs are all men. Everyone knows that. Why would you lie about something so obvious?" Mrs. Patterson tried to restore order, but the damage was done. The students continued to murmur and giggle among themselves. Emma felt tears welling up in her eyes as she returned to her seat, still holding the photograph tightly against her chest. During lunch, the teasing continued in the cafeteria. A group of older students had heard about Emma's claim and decided to join in the mockery. "Hey, it's the girl whose mom is supposedly a superhero," called out Jake Martinez, an 8th grader with a reputation for being mean. Emma sat alone at a corner table, picking at her sandwich while trying to ignore the cruel comments floating around her. She pulled out her phone and looked at a recent text message from her mother. "Missing you, sweetheart. Can't wait to come home and hear about your new school. Stay strong. Love, Mom." The afternoon didn't get any better. During recess, a crowd of students gathered around Emma, demanding proof of her mother's military service. "If your mom is really a Navy SEAL, then show us some evidence," challenged Tommy. "Where are her medals? Where are the news articles about her? You can't just show us one fake picture." Emma tried explaining that much of her mother's work was classified and couldn't be discussed publicly, but her explanations only fueled more skepticism. The students accused her of watching too many action movies and creating fantasy stories about her family. By the end of the school day, word had spread throughout the entire school. Even some teachers seemed doubtful when they overheard students talking about Emma's claims. The school secretary, Mrs. Johnson, looked at Emma with sympathy but also confusion when she came to pick up some paperwork. That evening, Emma called her mother using a secure military communication line. Through tears, she explained what had happened at school. "Mom, nobody believes me when I tell them what you do. They think I'm lying because they've never heard of women Navy SEALs." Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez listened carefully to her daughter's story, her heart breaking at the pain in Emma's voice. "Sweetheart, I know this is difficult. The work I do isn't well known to most people, and many don't realize that women have recently been allowed to serve in these special operations units. But you should never be ashamed of who your family is or what we do to serve our country. Can you come to my school and tell them yourself?" Emma asked hopefully. "I wish I could, baby, but I'm still deployed for another few weeks. However, I might be able to arrange something special. Let me make some phone calls and see what I can do. In the meantime, hold your head high. You're the daughter of a Navy SEAL, and that means you're stronger than you know." Emma wiped away her tears, feeling slightly better after talking to her mother. She looked at the photograph on her nightstand showing her mom in full combat gear and made a silent promise to herself that she wouldn't let the bullies at school make her. Ashamed of her family's service to the country, little did Emma know that her mother was already planning something that would change everything and prove to her new classmates that some stories that seem too incredible to believe are actually true. The next morning at school, Emma hoped that maybe the other students would forget about yesterday's incident and move on to something else. Unfortunately, the teasing had only gotten worse overnight. Someone had apparently posted about her claims on social media, and now even high school students were laughing about the girl who said her mom was a Navy SEAL. During math class, Tommy Henderson passed a note to his friends that read, Emma's mom is probably just a cook on a Navy ship, but she wants everyone to think she's some kind of action hero. The note made its way around the classroom, causing quiet giggles and pointed looks in Emma's direction. Emma tried to focus on her algebra problems, but she could feel the stares and hear the whispered jokes. Her teacher, Mr. Williams, noticed the disruption, but couldn't figure out what was causing the students to act so distracted and amused. At lunchtime, the situation escalated further. A group of 6th graders had created a mock Navy SEAL training course on the playground, complete with ridiculous obstacle courses made from playground equipment. They were pretending to be tough commandos while making exaggerated comments about how Emma's mom must train for her super-secret missions. "Maybe her mom fights aliens too," joked one of the girls, doing fake military rolls across the monkey bars. "Or maybe she's actually a mermaid seal instead of a Navy SEAL." The crowd of onlookers grew larger as more students joined in the spectacle. Even some adults walking by stopped to see what the commotion was about. Emma watched from a distance, feeling humiliated and angry. She wanted to defend her mother, but she knew that anything she said would only make the situation worse. That afternoon in history class, the lesson happened to be about military operations during World War II. When Mrs. Peterson mentioned Special Forces units, Tommy raised his hand with a smirk on his face. "Mrs. Peterson, Emma says her mom is a Navy SEAL. Is that even possible for women?" Mrs. Peterson paused, looking uncertain. "Well, traditionally, special operations units like the Navy SEALs have been male-only. I believe there have been some recent changes to allow women in certain roles, but I'm not entirely sure about the current policies." Emma felt her face burning with embarrassment as all eyes turned toward her. "My mom really is a SEAL," she said quietly. "She went through all the same training as the men." Some students snickered, and Tommy shook his head dramatically. "Come on, Emma. Just admit you made it up. There's no shame in having a regular mom with a normal job." The teacher tried to move onto other topics, but Emma could see the doubt in Mrs. Peterson's eyes as well. It seemed like even the adults at school were starting to question her story. After school, Emma walked home feeling completely defeated. She had always been proud of her mother's achievements and sacrifices for the country, but now that pride was turning into a source of shame and isolation, she began to wonder if it would be easier to just tell everyone that her mother had a different job, something more ordinary and believable. At home, Emma's grandmother, who was staying with her while her mother was deployed, noticed her granddaughter's sad expression. "What's wrong, mija? You look like you've been carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders." Emma explained the entire situation to her grandmother, including how nobody at school believed her about her mother's career. Her grandmother listened patiently, nodding with understanding and growing anger at the treatment Emma was receiving. "Your mother sacrifices so much to keep this country safe," her grandmother said firmly. "She has earned every bit of respect and recognition that comes with her position. These children at your school simply don't understand what they're talking about." That evening, Emma's mother called again from her deployment location. When she heard that the situation at school had gotten worse instead of better, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez made a decision that would surprise everyone. "Emma, I've been thinking about our conversation last night," her mother said. "I've spoken with my commanding officer, and we've arranged for something special. I can't tell you all the details yet, but I want you to know that very soon, everyone at your school will understand exactly what kind of work your mother does." Emma felt a spark of hope for the first time in days. "What do you mean, Mom? What are you planning?" "Let's just say that sometimes the best way to handle doubt is with a demonstration. I want you to go to school tomorrow and tell your classmates that they're about to learn something very important about respect and the meaning of service to country." "But how can you do anything when you're deployed overseas?" Emma asked, confused but excited. Her mother's voice carried a hint of mystery and determination. "Sweetheart, you're about to discover that Navy SEALs have resources and connections that most people never imagine. Trust me, and trust your team. We never leave one of our own behind, and that includes family members who are facing battles at home." Emma went to bed that night feeling more hopeful than she had since starting at her new school, though she couldn't imagine what her mother possibly had planned from thousands of miles away. Emma walked into school the next morning with a newfound confidence, despite not knowing exactly what her mother had planned. During first period English class, she surprised everyone by volunteering to share something with the class. "I know you all think I've been lying about my mom," Emma said, standing up at her desk. "But I want you to know that very soon, you're going to learn the truth about what it means to serve in the United States Navy SEALs." Tommy Henderson laughed loudly. "Oh, here we go again with the fantasy stories. What's next, Emma? Is your mom going to parachute into our classroom?" The other students giggled, but Emma just smiled mysteriously. "You might be surprised by what happens today. My mom taught me that actions speak louder than words." Throughout the morning, Emma noticed several unfamiliar adults visiting the school. They were dressed in civilian clothes, but something about their posture and the way they moved reminded her of her mother's military friends. She wondered if this was somehow connected to whatever her mother had planned. During lunch period, Emma was sitting alone as usual when the school principal, Mrs. Davidson, made an announcement over the intercom. "All students and staff, please report to the gymnasium immediately for a special assembly. This is not a drill." The students filed into the gym, buzzing with curiosity about this unexpected gathering. Emma noticed that several of those unfamiliar adults from earlier were now standing near the stage, along with some local police officers and what appeared to be military personnel in dress uniforms. Mrs. Davidson took the microphone and addressed the assembled crowd. "Students and faculty, we have some very special guests with us today who wanted to visit our school to talk about military service and the sacrifices made by our service members and their families." Tommy leaned over to his friends. "This is probably just some boring military recruitment presentation. I bet Emma thinks this is somehow related to her fake story about her mom." A tall man in a Navy dress uniform stepped up to the microphone. "Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Commander James Mitchell from the Naval Special Warfare Command. We're here today because one of your classmates has been facing some challenges related to her family's military service." Emma's heart began racing. She had never seen this man before, but something about his serious demeanor and the way he commanded attention reminded her of her mother's colleagues. "It has come to our attention," Commander Mitchell continued, "that some people at this school have been questioning the service record and qualifications of Lieutenant Commander Maria Rodriguez, who is currently deployed overseas on active duty." The gymnasium fell completely silent. Emma could feel hundreds of eyes turning toward her, and she saw Tommy's face go pale as he began to realize that this assembly might actually be about her family. Commander Mitchell gestured toward a large screen that had been set up on the stage. "Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez has served with distinction in the United States Navy SEALs for over 5 years. She is one of the first women to successfully complete the basic underwater demolition SEAL training program, and she has participated in multiple classified operations around the world." Images appeared on the screen showing official Navy SEAL training exercises, combat missions, and graduation ceremonies. Emma recognized some of the photos, including several featuring her mother in full combat gear alongside her SEAL teammates. "The Navy SEALs have a motto," Commander Mitchell announced. "The only easy day was yesterday." This means that every day, these warriors face new challenges and overcome obstacles that would break most people. They do this not for glory or recognition, but to protect the freedoms that allow all of you to attend school safely every day. Emma watched as her classmates stared at the screen in amazement and growing embarrassment. The photos and official documentation were undeniably real, and it was becoming clear that Emma had been telling the truth all along. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez couldn't be here today because she's currently leading a mission that helps keep our nation secure, the commander explained. However, she wanted her daughter Emma to know that the Navy SEAL community stands behind their families just as strongly as they stand behind each other. At this point, Mrs. Davidson stepped forward looking slightly nervous. "Commander, we had no idea about the extent of Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez's service. If we had known, we certainly would have handled this situation differently." Commander Mitchell nodded seriously. "Ma'am, the problem isn't that you didn't know about her service record. The problem is that a young girl was mocked and bullied for honoring her mother's sacrifices. In the military, we have a saying, 'Respect is earned, but courtesy is given.' These students failed to show basic courtesy to a family member of someone who risks her life for their freedom." The gymnasium remained silent except for the sound of shuffling feet and nervous coughs. Emma could see that many of her classmates were looking down at their hands, clearly ashamed of how they had treated her. "But," Commander Mitchell said with a slight smile, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez also wanted to make sure her daughter's classmates understood exactly what kind of training and dedication it takes to become a Navy SEAL. So we've arranged for a little demonstration. Emma's eyes widened with excitement and curiosity. She still had no idea what her mother had arranged, but she could tell that the biggest surprise was yet to come. Commander Mitchell looked toward the gymnasium doors and spoke into a small radio device. "Bravo team, you are clear for entry." Suddenly, the lights in the gymnasium dimmed and a spotlight illuminated the main entrance. The doors burst open with a loud crash, and 6 figures dressed in full Navy SEAL combat gear came running into the room. They moved with precision and speed, their black uniforms and tactical equipment making them look like something from an action movie. The students gasped, and some actually screamed as the SEALs performed a coordinated entry, using hand signals and moving in formation across the gymnasium floor. Their faces were covered with tactical masks, and they carried realistic training weapons that made the demonstration look incredibly authentic. "This is a basic room-clearing exercise," Commander Mitchell announced as the SEALs demonstrated their tactics. "Navy SEALs train constantly to enter dangerous situations and complete missions that other forces cannot handle. Every movement you see has been practiced thousands of times until it becomes second nature." Emma watched in amazement as the SEAL team demonstrated various military skills, including rappelling from the gymnasium balcony, tactical communications, and combat medical procedures. The students sat in stunned silence, finally understanding the level of skill and training required to become a Navy SEAL. One of the masked SEALs approached the microphone and removed their tactical helmet, revealing a woman with short brown hair and intense dark eyes. "Good afternoon, students. I'm Petty Officer Sarah Chen, and I've been serving with the Navy SEALs for 3 years. The students stared in shock. Here was living proof that women could indeed serve as Navy SEALs, and she looked just as tough and capable as her male teammates. "I graduated from the same training program as Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez," Petty Officer Chen continued. "That training included swimming 6 miles in the ocean, running hundreds of miles on sand, carrying heavy boats over our heads for hours, and staying awake for days at a time while completing complex missions." Tommy Henderson, who had been so vocal in his disbelief, now sat with his mouth hanging open. The reality of what he was seeing was completely different from anything he had imagined about military service. Another SEAL removed his helmet, revealing a young man who couldn't have been much older than the high school students. "I'm Petty Officer Marcus Johnson, and I've had the honor of serving alongside Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez on 2 overseas deployments. She's one of the toughest and most skilled operators I've ever worked with." Commander Mitchell stepped forward again. "Emma Rodriguez, would you please come up to the stage?" Emma's legs felt shaky as she walked toward the front of the gymnasium. She could feel every eye in the room watching her, but now the attention felt different. Instead of mockery and disbelief, she sensed respect and amazement from her classmates. When she reached the stage, Commander Mitchell handed her a folded American flag and a framed certificate. "This flag was flown over the naval base where your mother is currently serving. This certificate recognizes you as an honorary member of the Navy SEAL family, with all the respect and support that comes with that designation." The SEAL team members stepped forward, and each shook Emma's hand, treating her with the same serious respect they would show to any family member of their fellow warriors. Petty Officer Chen spoke directly to Emma. "Your mother asked us to tell you that she's proud of how you've handled this situation. Standing up for the truth even when people don't believe you is exactly the kind of courage that makes a good SEAL." Then Commander Mitchell addressed the entire school. "I want everyone here to understand something important. The men and women who serve in special operations forces like the Navy SEALs don't do it for recognition or fame. Most of their work is classified, and their families often can't even talk about what their loved ones do to serve the country." He paused and looked directly at the students who had been bullying Emma. "When you mock a military family, you're not just hurting the feelings of one child, you're disrespecting everyone who has sacrificed to keep you safe. Emma Rodriguez has been carrying the weight of her mother's service with dignity and honor, and she deserved your respect from the beginning." The gymnasium was completely silent as the weight of the commander's words sank in. Many students were wiping away tears, finally understanding the magnitude of their behavior and the incredible sacrifice made by families like Emma's. "Now, Commander Mitchell announced with a slight smile. Petty Officer Chen has agreed to answer some questions about what it's really like to be a Navy SEAL. I think you'll find that the truth is far more impressive than any movie or television show you've ever seen. Emma stood on the stage holding her flag and certificate, feeling prouder of her mother than ever before. She could see that her classmates were looking at her with new eyes, and she knew that everything was about to change at Riverside Elementary School. The question and answer session that followed was unlike anything the students at Riverside Elementary had ever experienced. Petty Officer Chen answered their questions with patience and detail, describing the intense physical and mental challenges of SEAL training, the importance of teamwork, and the reality of serving in dangerous situations around the world. "How long is the training to become a Navy SEAL?" asked a quiet girl from Emma's class who had never spoken up before. "The initial training phase, called BUDS, lasts about 6 months, Petty Officer Chen explained. But that's just the beginning. We continue training and learning throughout our entire careers. The day you stop pushing yourself to be better is the day you become a liability to your team." Tommy Henderson finally raised his hand, his face red with embarrassment. "I'm sorry, but I have to ask. Is it really as hard as they show in the movies?" Petty Officer Chen smiled grimly. "The movies don't even come close. During Hell Week, which is part of basic training, we get about 4 hours of sleep total over 5 days while doing constant physical training in freezing ocean water. Many people quit during that week, and that's exactly the point. We need to know that every person on our team will keep going even when everything seems impossible." A 5th grade student raised her hand. "Are you scared when you go on missions?" "Fear is a normal human emotion," Chen answered honestly. "The difference is that we've trained so much that we can function effectively even when we're afraid. We trust our training, our equipment, and most importantly, our teammates. That trust is what keeps us alive and allows us to complete our missions." After the questions ended, Commander Mitchell made one final announcement. "Before we leave today, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez wanted us to share something special with her daughter and this school community." A large video screen descended from the ceiling, and suddenly Emma gasped as her mother's face appeared on the screen. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez was in full military gear, clearly speaking from some kind of forward operating base overseas. "Hello, Emma, and hello to everyone at Riverside Elementary School," her mother said with a warm smile. "I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I wanted you all to meet some of my teammates and understand what we do." Emma felt tears streaming down her face as she saw her mother looking strong and confident in her military environment. "Emma, sweetheart, I hope you've learned today that telling the truth is always worth it, even when it's difficult. I also hope your classmates have learned something about respect and the importance of supporting military families." Her mother's expression became more serious as she addressed the entire school. "To all the students watching this, I want you to understand that freedom isn't free. Every day, men and women in all branches of the military work to protect the rights and freedoms that allow you to go to school, play with your friends, and pursue your dreams. We don't do this job for thanks or recognition, but we do ask for your respect for the families who support us. Emma," her mother continued, "I need you to be strong for just a few more weeks until I come home. When I do, we'll have a proper celebration, and I promise to tell you some stories about the amazing people I work with every day." The video connection ended, and the gymnasium erupted in spontaneous applause. Emma wiped away her tears and looked around to see many of her classmates crying as well, finally understanding the emotional weight of having a parent deployed in military service. As the SEAL team prepared to leave, several students approached Emma with sincere apologies. Sarah Mitchell, who had been one of the most vocal critics, came up with tears in her eyes. "Emma, I'm really sorry for not believing you and for being so mean," she said quietly. "I didn't understand what military families go through. Your mom is amazing, and you should be really proud of her." Tommy Henderson also approached, looking ashamed but determined to make things right. "I was totally wrong about everything," he admitted. "I thought I knew what I was talking about, but I was just being ignorant. Your mom is like a real-life superhero, and I'm sorry for making fun of you." Mrs. Patterson, Emma's teacher, came over and gave her a gentle hug. "Emma, I owe you an apology as well. I should have supported you instead of allowing doubt to creep in. From now on, we're going to make sure this school is a place where military families feel respected and valued." Principal Davidson announced that the school would be implementing a new program to honor military families and educate students. about the sacrifices made by service members and their loved ones. They would also be establishing a support group for students with deployed parents. As the assembly ended and students began filing out of the gymnasium, Emma noticed that everything had changed. Instead of avoiding her or whispering behind her back, her classmates were approaching her with genuine interest and respect. Some wanted to know more about military life. Others wanted to share that they had relatives in different branches of the armed forces. For the first time since starting at Riverside Elementary School, Emma felt like she truly belonged. She realized that her mother had given her an incredible gift, not just the dramatic demonstration of SEAL capabilities, but also the opportunity to educate her entire school community about honor, sacrifice, and respect. 3 weeks later, Emma's life at Riverside Elementary had transformed completely. She now sat with a group of friends during lunch, sharing stories about military bases around the world and the unique experiences that came with being part of a military family. Her classmates hung on every word, fascinated by her tales of living in different countries and moving frequently due to her mother's assignments. The school had followed through on Principal Davidson's promise to honor military families. A special display case near the main entrance now featured photos and information about current and former students who had family members serving in all branches of the military. Emma's mother's official Navy SEAL portrait held a place of honor in the center of the display. Tommy Henderson had become one of Emma's most loyal defenders. When a new student made an offhand comment about military families being weird because they moved so much, Tommy quickly corrected him and explained the sacrifices that service members and their families made for the country. The transformation in Tommy's attitude had surprised everyone, including his own parents. Mrs. Patterson had incorporated lessons about military service into her social studies curriculum, and the class was now working on a project to send care packages to deployed service members overseas. Emma had helped them understand what items would be most appreciated and how to write letters that would boost morale for troops far from home. The story of what happened at Riverside Elementary had spread throughout the community. Local newspapers wrote articles about the Navy SEAL demonstration and the importance of supporting military families. The mayor even declared a Military Appreciation Week for the following month, with Emma's school serving as the central location for community events. On a sunny Friday afternoon, Emma received the news she had been waiting for. Her grandmother answered the phone and immediately started crying with joy. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez's deployment had been completed successfully, and she would be returning home within the week. The school organized a special welcome home assembly, and this time it was a celebration rather than a confrontation. Students had made banners and signs welcoming Emma's mother back from her deployment. The local veterans organization volunteered to participate in the ceremony, along with families from other military personnel stationed at the nearby base. When the day finally arrived, Emma stood nervously by the school's main entrance, wearing her best dress and holding a bouquet of flowers. A military convoy pulled up outside, and Emma's heart raced as she recognized the familiar figure stepping out of the lead vehicle. Lieutenant Commander Maria Rodriguez looked exactly as Emma remembered, but somehow even more impressive in her dress uniform with all her ribbons and decorations visible. She walked toward the school with the confident stride that Emma had inherited, and her eyes immediately found her daughter waiting by the entrance. "Mom," Emma shouted, running toward her mother and throwing her arms around her in a tight hug. "Hello, my brave girl," her mother whispered, holding Emma close and feeling the weight of their separation melting away. "I heard you handled yourself like a true warrior while I was gone." The reunion assembly was everything Emma had dreamed it would be. Her mother spoke to the students about leadership, perseverance, and the importance of supporting each other through difficult times. She thanked the SEAL team members who had visited the school and praised Commander Mitchell for going above and beyond to support a military family. "Emma taught all of you an important lesson," Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez told the assembled students. "She showed you that sometimes the most unbelievable stories are actually true, and that courage means standing up for what's right even when others doubt you." She looked directly at her daughter with pride shining in her eyes, but Emma also learned something important. She discovered that when you're part of a team, whether it's a Navy SEAL team or a school community, you never have to face your battles alone. After the assembly, Emma and her mother walked home together, catching up on everything that had happened during the deployment. Emma told her about the friendships she had formed, the projects she was working on, and how different school felt now that everyone understood and respected her family's service. "I'm proud of how you handled such a difficult situation," her mother said as they reached their house. "You showed the same kind of strength and integrity that we value in the military. Most importantly, you never compromised your values or pretended to be something you weren't." That evening, the Rodriguez family had dinner together for the first time in months. Emma's grandmother had prepared all of their favorite foods, and they spent hours talking and laughing around the kitchen table. Emma realized that this was what her mother had been fighting to protect during her deployment, the simple freedom to be together as a family in their own home. As Emma got ready for bed that night, she looked at the framed certificate and flag that the SEAL team had given her, now displayed prominently on her bedroom wall next to photos of her mother in uniform. She thought about how much her life had changed since that first difficult day at Riverside Elementary. The girl who had once been mocked for honoring her mother's service was now a leader in her school's military family support program. She had learned that truth, courage, and loyalty were not just military values, but principles that could guide anyone through life's challenges. Emma smiled as she turned off her bedroom light, knowing that tomorrow would bring new adventures and opportunities to make her mother proud. She had discovered that being the daughter of a Navy SEAL meant carrying herself with honor and strength, both at home and in her community.